What if the battles you witnessed on Sister Wives never existed? What if the yelling, the crying, the showdown walkouts were not genuine emotions, but skillfully rehearsed performances, meant to manipulate audience members, take advantage of family suffering, and sustain a $1 million empire? That is what new insider reports are implying. And if so, it means that Kody and Robyn weren't just desperate. They were consciously operating a scam. Testimony and behind the scenes reports have it that Kody and Robyn's purported fights weren't even real flashpoints of domestic tension. Rather, they were scripted, timed, and even directed by individuals who knew precisely how to elicit maximum drama. And here is the kicker. These staged fights weren't just for television viewership. They were allegedly connected to a larger fraud scheme involving contracts, payments, and the intentional manipulation of both fans and family members. Now imagine this. You're watching a tense episode where Kody storms out after accusing Robyn of betrayal. The camera lingers on Robyn's tears. Fans rage online. Ratings spike. TLC cashes in. But behind closed doors, insiders claim the fight ended with a laugh, a handshake, and sometimes even a celebratory glass of wine. Because it was all part of the plan, and the money, that flowed straight into accounts that other wives, including Christine and Janelle, may never have even known existed. If you're already feeling angry, you're not alone. Because the proof we're about to step through reveals a cunningly staged performance, an eviction that not only deceived viewers, but might have swindled Kody's own relatives. But before we get into the explosive documents, leaked agreements, and behind the scenes testimony, let me catch my breath for a second. Make sure you subscribe, because this is merely the beginning of a tale still being written. Because in the next installment, you'll hear precisely how one whistleblower characterized the rehearsals for Kody and Robyn's most explosive altercations, and just how the very same arguments that shattered the family on television might have been the result of intentional strategy behind closed doors. The first fracture in the illusion came from someone who worked directly with the Browns on set. This whistleblower, who we'll call Mark for protection, says he witnessed rehearsals for arguments that were later broadcast as real moments of family crisis. Mark claims he first realized something was wrong when he saw Kody pacing in the backyard, before cameras rolled. Not nervous, not emotional, just practicing lines. He would run the same sentences over and over, Mark recalled, like an actor preparing for a scene, except this wasn't supposed to be performing. This was supposed to be reality. More frightening? Robyn wasn't the tearful, distraught wife she seemed on television. She could flip on the waterworks in a heartbeat, according to Mark. "I saw her laughing 1 minute, then crying on command the next," he said. After the cameras cut off, she wiped her face, touched up her makeup, and asked the crew if they thought it was convincing. And it wasn't only little things, whole fights, some which fans still debate in cyberspace, were allegedly planned out before they ever occurred. In one case, Mark reports that Kody took him aside and said, "We need to have a blow-up tonight. Ratings are down." That blow-up became one of the season's most watched episodes. Fans were incensed at Robyn's alleged betrayal while Kody acted the victim. Social media exploded. TLC producers were in hog heaven. But behind the scenes, it was an act. Now here is where it gets really nasty. As Mark told it, the production crew wasn't merely passive filming. Nor were they blameless. There were notes, scripts, meetings where the producers pushed for more fights, louder arguments, more tears, he disclosed. It wasn't about filming a family, it was about creating drama. And why? Because each tear, each slammed door, each shaking voice equated into dollars. The fake fights weren't all about getting attention. They were the carefully calculated deception, created to boost ratings, get contracts legitimized, and keep a river of money flowing into the pockets of Kody and Robyn follow. The money, that is what detectives always say, and when it involves Kody and Robyn, the trail doesn't just raise an eyebrow, it raises red flags. Insider records obtained by those in close proximity to the family indicate that multiple accounts were covertly established at the peak of the program's popularity. These weren't family trust accounts or college funds for the children. These were kept in Kody and Robyn's control almost entirely in the name of busyness expenses. One of the biggest revelations, a string of transfers that connected scripted fights directly with payday bonuses. Here's the way it supposedly worked. Whenever a pivotal on-screen fight aired and ratings skyrocketed, a payment from TLC or one of its subsidiaries would then appear in these accounts within weeks. Rather than being divided equally between the wives, the money tended to go directly into what whistleblowers now refer to as the Robyn Fund. Christine and Janelle, sources say, were kept mostly in the dark. They thought the brawls were just the excitement of polygamy, explained one source. They didn't know those brawls were getting cashed in like lottery tickets. And the amounts weren't tiny. We're not talking a few thousand here or there. We're talking six-figure transfers tied directly to episodes of conflict. In one case, a single explosive fight about finances was followed by a $180,000 deposit into an account Robyn allegedly managed. Even more suspicious, these accounts were often moved between banks, sometimes offshore, with vague descriptions like production reimbursement or performance enhancement. That last phrase raised a particular alarm: performance enhancement. On a reality show, it didn't sound so much like real life as it did. Like a script from Hollywood, watchers were being sold heartbreak. The family was being broken apart, and Kody and Robyn, they were rumored to be pocketing the profits, while everyone else in the Browns received leftovers. But for how long can money like that be kept under wraps? In the next part, we'll break down the leaked court filings that reveal just how close this financial shell game came to being exposed, and why one judge used the word fraud to describe Kody's dealings. The secret accounts might have stayed buried forever, if not for the court filings. During a heated legal dispute over property rights on Coyote Pass, lawyers representing Christine stumbled upon documents that raised far more questions than answers. Hidden in the documents were records of transactions that failed to reconcile with the family's reported income. The money trail we've just described wasn't speculation. It was black and white before our eyes. One judge, after reading through the documents, reportedly leaned back in shock before warning. As reported by sources within the courtroom, the judge employed one word that shocked everyone in the listening room: fraud. Any agreement where income is deliberately withheld from other contractual parties, the judge commented, can be interpreted as fraudulent misrepresentation. That single sentence threw a dark shadow over the empire of Kody and Robyn. The reports included mentions of various payments classified as appearance fees and performance incentives, but just two names were consistently listed as recipients: Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. None of the other wives were included, not once. What is more, one of the filings uncovered a glaring contradiction. On paper, Kody had stated the family's income as evenly distributed. But the bank transfers painted another picture, as Janelle and Christine were barely getting by, fending off mortgages and legal bills. Kody and Robyn were reportedly sitting on hundreds of thousands, silently siphoned through these side accounts. The judge's response was not the only issue. Lawyers were posing difficult questions. How were these choreographed brawls tying so well into financial bonuses? How were other wives not being included in deals that supposedly were the family as a whole? And why did every trail of paperwork lead back to Robyn and Kody? The court didn't make a fraud ruling at the time, but the notice was unequivocal. If true, these actions would put the Browns at risk of serious legal action. And here is where the tale takes its most startling turn. For it is said that soon after that courtroom exchange, a mole leaked proof that indicated Kody and Robyn might not have acted alone in perpetrating the hoax. TLC themselves may have been aware, and even condoning the faking. If you thought this was all Kody and Robyn manipulating things from behind the scenes, think again. Several insiders claim that the production crew weren't just in on the staged brawls. They were actively egging them on. One of the former crew members admitted that the meetings would typically feature very particular requests. We need a huge confrontation this week, something that'll go viral online. Don't let it get too quiet. These weren't documentary requests, they were drama directives. Far from it, insiders say producers would actually sit down with Kody and Robyn to brainstorm flashpoint issues, money, jealousy, parenting disagreements. Nothing was on the table if it held the promise of fireworks. Once the battles were planned out, cameras were set up ahead of time to record every slamming door and every cry, and every one of them from several angles. Then here is the twist. The production contract supposedly included a clause that paid bonuses on high-engagement episodes in English. More dramatic episodes equaled more money. And because Kody and Robyn were in the middle of most of the drama, They were in just the right spot to profit. One source outlined a scene that is not easy to erase. After taping a particularly vicious battle where Robyn sobbed uncontrollably, she allegedly approached a producer off set and said, "Was that good enough? Do you think they'll buy it?" The producer's answer: a nod and the words, "Perfect, that is the money shot." If that isn't reality television, it is because it isn't. It is staged chaos presented as authenticity, and the crazier chaos Kody and Robyn provided, the more they got paid. So was TLC complicit? The evidence points to, yes, not only did they sign off on contracts that paid for drama, but they allegedly turned a blind eye as the financial improprieties grew. After all, as long as the ratings were there, the checks kept on clearing. But here's where the risk increases for Kody and Robyn. Because once the courts caught on that producers might have knowingly enabled fraudulent activity, the legal focus expanded. Suddenly, this wasn't just a family dispute. It was possibly a corporate scandal. How Christine and Janelle started linking the dots, and why their own investigations into Kody and Robyn's money became the potential match that could set the entire operation ablaze. For years, Christine and Janelle tolerated Kody's anger and Robyn's ascension, writing it off as the craziness of plural marriage. But something shifted. The figures just didn't add up. Christine, who was already at her breaking point, said she started noticing discrepancies in family budgets. Bills were mounting, but Robyn managed to find money for luxuries somehow. Designer outfits, costly home furnishings, and even a nanny that paid more than most full-time wages. Janelle, who had also been managing her own financial woes, saw the same trend. Why is Robyn always safe and the rest of us are sinking? She is said to have asked close friends. That is when rumors about hidden accounts started swirling. Christine and Janelle began snooping together. They compared receipts, notes, and statements. And what they uncovered painted a grim picture, although their percentage of TLC's paychecks just covered family bills. Kody and Robyn's lifestyle continued to rise. An insider says Christine found a transfer from a TLC-affiliated account that was never revealed in family gatherings. It wasn't modest. It was more than $90,000. The twist. The timing coincided exactly with one of the season's most notorious brawls. For Christine, the discovery was heart-wrenching. Those yelling arguments she suffered, those on-camera tears, were they being made into Robyn's profit all along? Janelle's revelation cut deeper still. Months of barely getting by and even selling personal items in order to keep the lights on, only to discover documents that implied Kody had signed TLC contracts in secret without discussing them with her. "We were all supposed to be equal," Janelle allegedly told a friend. "Instead, I was treated like a stand, while Robyn became the star and the shareholder." That is, when both women had had enough. Undefended weren't merely going to confront Kody, they were going to document it all. Undefined copies of transfers, screenshots of statements, even text messages where producers allegedly hinted at planned conflicts. Christine and Janelle had assembled a file, and that file, insiders say, would soon find its way into the hands of lawyers and judges who were already circling Kody and Robyn's financial empire. But before the courts even got involved, the tension inside the family reached a boiling point. Undefined in the next part. We'll reveal how Christine confronted Robyn face to face, and why that showdown may have been the most explosive moment never aired on TLC. The cameras caught plenty of tears between Robyn and Christine, but what viewers never got to see was the showdown that occurred outside of TLC's camera from insiders. Christine showed up at Robyn's Flagstaff house one night after compiling months of financial irregularities. She didn't pay a social call. She arrived with proof. She had a folder in her arm, one insider said. Bank statements, screenshots, even a handwritten list of every time a big fight aired and every time money seemed to move. Christine wasn't there to gossip. She was there to accuse. When Christine spread the papers out on Robyn's kitchen counter, the response was illuminating, rather than outright denial. Robyn allegedly grew agitated, demanding, "Where did you get this?" Christine did not relent. "Staging fights for money," she stated firmly. "You and Kody are profiting while the rest of us are used as props." Robyn attempted to deflect, saying the accounts were business related, and Christine didn't know how contracts worked. But Christine wasn't having it. The timing was too convenient. Each altercation, each meltdown, each meticulously recorded walkout and subsequent suspicious deposit. The screaming peaked to the point where, witnesses said, Robyn cried, although Christine suspected it was another act. She was crying, but there was no underlying grief. The source said, it was like she was attempting to spin the moment as she spun it for the cameras. By the time the confrontation had ended, Christine allegedly made a chilling threat. If you don't tell the truth, the courts will. That line wasn't merely anger. It was a vow. Since Christine had already consulted with legal advisors, and her dossier of proof was mounting by the day. Robyn, shaken and angry, supposedly informed Kody the instant Christine departed. And instead of extinguishing the flames, Kody did what he typically did. He doubled down. He told Robyn they'd fight back, not with honesty, but with more staged drama to cover their tracks. But that decision would only make things worse. Because soon, Christine wasn't the only one watching them closely. Janelle and even Meri began noticing cracks in the story, and that pressure pushed Kody into his most reckless moves yet. When Christine confronted Robyn, the ripple effect hit the entire Brown family. And the initial subject of Kody's panic was not Christine or Janelle, but Meri. According to sources, Kody thought Meri was something she could control. For years she had been kept on the sidelines in the family, emotionally pushed out and regarded as an outsider. Kody perceived her isolation as a chance, and if he could get her to support him and Robyn, they might be able to use her loyalty to shut Christine and Janelle up. But the effort backfired big time. Sources say Kody sat Meri down and sketched a dire scenario. They're trying to destroy us, he allegedly said to her. Christine's falsehoods are going to kill the family. You have to stay with me, for Robyn, for the children, for all we've established. Meri listened in silence at first. She'd suffered years of gaslighting and guilt, tripping, so this was business as usual. But this time around, she wasn't buying it. In the background, Meri had already started connecting the dots for herself. She observed that even though her own finances were stretched to the limit, Robyn's home never had a problem. She'd also overheard rumors from the other crew members that conflicted with Kody's account of what had happened. When Kody leaned in close and begged, "We can make this work if you'll just tell everyone else you never noticed anything out of the way." Meri broke finally. "You want me to lie," she retorted. "You want me to act like this sideshow is true when it isn't. I've been embarrassed enough, Kody. I won't be part of your scam." That rejection shattered him. For years, Kody had kept Meri on the fringes, but he always assumed she'd cling to him no matter how badly he treated her. This time, Meri's refusal wasn't just personal, it was dangerous. Because if she did decide to come forward, she could validate Christine and Janelle's words with first-hand evidence. Kody's manipulative move instead drove meri further away rather than winning her over. She began quietly aligning herself with Christine and Janelle, trading stories, comparing notes, and slowly building a united front against the Empire Kody and Robyn were trying so desperately to protect. And while Meri's loyalty was slipping away, Kody made his most reckless move yet, trying to cover the money trail with a series of desperate financial transfers that would later raise even more red flags in court. When the pressure closed in from Christine, Janelle, and now even Meri, Kody panicked. He knew the court documents were already suspicious. He knew Christine had proof. So rather than fessing up, he doubled down with a last-ditch financial trick. As insiders report, Kody started moving funds from one account to another in a bid to cover the tracks. Wire transfers, cash checks, and even consulting fee payments all of a sudden began appearing throughout his accounting records. To Kody, it probably seemed smart. Get the money out quickly enough, and perhaps nobody would notice. Maybe so. Here is the catch. Each transfer leaves an electronic trail, and when lawyers started looking at these transactions, the trend was clear. Money would vanish from a TLC-related account, bounce between 2 or 3 holding accounts, and reappear in Robyn's hands. One of the most damning was after a now-famous on-camera blowout between Kody and Janelle. Fans thought that was the end of the family. 2 weeks later, a $75,000 transfer-coded content escalation fee appeared in an account that Robyn allegedly controlled. When asked, Kody termed it as routine business. But immediately, auditors picked up on it. And this is where Kody made his most egregious error. In a hurry to transfer the cash, he inadvertently initiated a compliance check, Big wire transfers are often reportable, and one suspicious transaction was referred to state regulators. Suddenly, what Kody thought was clever bookkeeping looked more like financial misconduct. By trying to bury the evidence, Kody had actually created a paper trail that was stronger than ever. Each desperate transfer painted a clearer picture. The fights weren't accidents, they were transactions. Meanwhile, Robyn reportedly urged him to stop. "You're going to make it worse," she warned. But Kody, angry and sure he could outmaneuver all of them, continued to push money around, digging a hole deeper and deeper. Those wire transfers would come back to haunt him as Exhibit A in legal arguments over fraud. But the devastation wasn't entirely monetary, because while Kody was trying to cover his tracks, Christine and Janelle were getting ready to make their most public stand ever. By this time, Christine and Janelle weren't frustrated, they were angry for years. They had borne the emotional and financial burdens of a failing plural marriage, all for their exclusion from the payday their strife created. Now, with evidence mounting and rumors coalescing into proof, they felt it was time to take action. Christine, already spurred by her breakup, contacted a lawyer who handled contract cases. Janelle, practical as always, brought the receipts, meticulous notes on deposits, missing checks, and the suspicious timing of Kody and Robyn's payouts. Together, they sat across from a lawyer and laid out the case, the staged fights, the hidden transfers, the contracts that excluded them, the money that vanished into Robyn's accounts. According to insiders, the lawyer didn't mince words. "If what you're saying is accurate," he told them, "this isn't just a family dispute, this looks like fraud." That simple declaration of fact gave Christine and Janelle the strength to go on. They started assembling a formal case, replicating every scrap of evidence, writing down every inconsistency. Their plan wasn't merely to confront Kody, it was to be prepared when the courts inevitably asked questions. The most formidable tool they had wasn't merely statistics, it was testimony. Both women were eager to speak on the record regarding the behind the scenes manipulation, scripted brawls, and how producers liked to stoke chaos. Together, their accounts had the potential to reveal Kody and Robyn as masterminds of a scam that not only damaged their family, but also millions of viewers who believed they were witnessing reality. Talk of their consultations with attorneys soon reached Kody, and he responded with sheer wrath. He blamed Christine and Janelle for betrayal, for attempting to break up the family. But the reality was, Kody had broken it himself, one pretend fight and one secret bank account at a time. And as Christine and Janelle solidified their bond, Kody did the one thing that would seal his fate, rather than standing down. He attempted to strike back, building his own violent response that would serve only to further incriminate him. When Christine and Janelle started to build their defense case, Kody knew the noose was tightening. But rather than apologizing or negotiating behind the scenes, he went out swinging with a legal argument that left his own advisors scratching their heads. Kody's claim that the family was never intended to be taken literally. In documents and confabs behind closed doors, he purportedly argued that Sister Wives was actually a performance art project rather than a documentary. Yes, you read that correctly. Kody himself attempted to make the argument that the fights on the show weren't real, and thus he couldn't be charged with fraud since the audience should have known it was entertainment. The catch, TLC's contracts and marketing materials said something very different. Repeatedly, the show was hyped as unscripted. Real and real, life drama. By insisting that it was all an act, Kody wasn't only discrediting himself, negatively affecting his own credibility, he was also impacting the network's credibility in doing so. When the judge heard out his argument, the backlash was biting. As reported by courthouse insiders, the judge leaned forward and described Kody's defense as an insult to the court's intelligence. "Either this was a reality show as you benefited from advertising," the judge remarked, "or it was scripted dishonesty. You cannot have it both ways." That one line chilled the room. Because if Kody said it was staged, he put himself and TLC on the hook for defrauding millions of viewers. But if he said it was real, then the secret bank accounts and payments appeared to be outright fraud. Kody's so-called defense had him cornered. Either way, he was guilty of something, and the longer he went on, the worse it got. Robyn, who sat beside him, was said to have cried openly at the hearing. But this time, there was no producer applause, no camera teams to film the moment for ratings. This wasn't television, it was legal reality. And the consequences were immediate. Christine and Janelle's lawyers caught a whiff of blood in the water. And TLC executives, formerly invincible, found themselves caught in the blast area as well. Once the judge tore apart Kody's performance art defense, the aftershocks rocked TLC headquarters like a grenade. The network had been relying on Sister Wives as one of its cornerstone reality shows for more than a decade, but now the same thing that had made it profitable, its claim to be real, was being torn apart in court. Executives soon figured it out. If Kody went down, and if people started believing the show had been a fake scam, then TLC could get sued too. Millions of people had spent years investing their time, passion, and even cash, in the form of merchandise and streaming subscriptions, believing the drama was real. In closed-door meetings, TLC attorneys allegedly initiated a desperate damage control campaign. Their plan was straightforward: keep the network separate from Robyn and Kody as soon as possible. Insiders tell us that secret memos were distributed to reduce references to authenticity and delete portions of some marketing pieces that had referred to Sister Wives as a raw, unfiltered look at polygamy. But that was only the beginning. Execs also reportedly explored abandoning Kody and Robyn altogether, shifting the focus of the show to Christine, Janelle, and the kids, who enjoyed public sympathy. Consider that for a second. After all those years establishing Kody as the patriarchal linchpin of the show, the network was now contemplating how to shelf the man from his own show. To TLC, Kody was no longer an asset. He was a liability. And here's the kicker. As TLC quietly began negotiating new contracts, Kody and Robyn were reportedly excluded. The legal department for the network felt that if they could prove they weren't part of Kody's plan, they could avoid being taken to court themselves. Robyn reportedly begged executives, claiming she and Kody were devoted to TLC and that they warranted the protection of the network. But no one would listen. According to one source, TLC knew protecting Kody was like attempting to bail out a sinking ship. They chopped the rope and let him slide under. The betrayal was devastating. Kody and Robyn thought for years that they were above it all, protected by the very system that had brought them into national consciousness. But in the television business, loyalty only goes so far as the viewers, and when scandal came into play, Kody was disposable. And when TLC turned its back, Christine and Janelle became more powerful than ever. The network capitalized on their freedom, labeling them as women who at last had shaken off deception. While Kody and Robyn were drowning in court cases and left high and dry by TLC, Christine and Janelle were building something much bigger than anyone anticipated behind the scenes. What began as two women escaping a toxic environment soon became a cultural movement felt far outside of Sister Wives enthusiasts. Christine, embracing her inherent charisma, leaned into her independence. She started conducting interviews in which she spoke of taking back her identity after decades of performing for cameras. She spoke, and it resonated deeply with women viewers, including those who had remained quiet in troubled marriages. Janelle, however, had a different purpose. She took the role of the calm, rational one, the voice of reason who had weathered economic manipulation but was now refusing to be managed. The two complemented each other in a flawless balance. Christine addressed the emotional core, and Janelle grounded the show in fact and reasonality. And TLC took notice. When ratings for shows revolving around Kody and Robyn began declining, clips highlighting Christine and Janelle shot through the roof. Audiences weren't watching the drama anymore. They were watching to see women reclaim their power. It wasn't long before TLC executives made subtle contract changes, so that Christine and Janelle were prominently included in future specials. Sources near production even say the network started shopping around a spin-off concept, something being temporarily called Life After Kody. But it wasn't just television contracts. Christine and Janelle were winning in court as well. Their attorneys took advantage of Kody's failed defense to emphasize how money had been unfairly diverted. Each document, each secret account, and each scripted fight was used against him and for them. The more they were exposed, the more the public sympathized with them. Online communities, podcasts, and fan sites erupted with support. Memes ridiculed Kody and Robyn's desperate antics, while Christine and Janelle were hailed as survivors who'd finally escaped years of exploitation. And maybe the most revealing shift? Even some of Kody's older kids started speaking up, aligning with their moms and casting doubt on the family cohesion narrative. Kody had worked so hard to uphold for years. By now, the dynamics had turned entirely in their favor. Kody and Robyn were no longer the stars but the cautionary tale. Christine and Janelle were now the heroines of a tale that people could not help watching. As Christine and Janelle's ascension made them symbols of liberty, Kody and Robyn were cornered. Their empire, the television show, the funds, the facade of authority, was collapsing more quickly than they could respond. Robyn, once the put-together wife, was now cracking. In recorded testimony that leaked from sworn depositions, she wept and conceded she had no idea how the finances were really handled. To the general public, this appeared less like innocence and more like avoidance, and critics did not spare her, accusing her of tears being another performance, another effort to deflect from the truth. Kody was no better off. Insiders claim he dug in deeper in court, yelling at lawyers and attempting to portray himself as a victim of betrayal by his wives and even the network. At one point, he slammed the table and accused TLC of using him. But no matter how much he shouted, the facts against him shouted louder. The courtroom was not the only arena. In the world of social media, the vendetta did not cease. Fans who had earlier tracked Kody's experience with intrigue now analyzed each contradiction in his narrative. Entire YouTube channels emerged, focused on unveiling his contradictions. Social media hashtags such as #KodyScam and #JusticeForTheWives gained traction, indicating that the tide of public opinion had fully turned against him. Robyn attempted one last tactic, appealing that the fake fights were for the good of the family and intended to save the show. But that excuse didn't stick. If anything, it proved the critics right all along. The show wasn't real, and the wives were being utilized as pawns in a cash-generating venture. Even TLC, once so quick to defend Kody to the death, remained mute. No public comments, no endorsement, no intervention. Insiders speculated that executives were already lining up to remake the show without him. Also, for the first time in years, Kody and Robyn were completely alone. No network supporting them, no wives standing up for them, and before long, no court protecting them either. The courtroom grew quiet as the judge made the decision everyone had been anticipating. After weeks of testimony, after years of suspicion, the truth was formally branded into the record. Kody and Robyn's scripted fights weren't merely terrible television, they were a calculated ploy to deceive, manipulate, and monetize at the expense of both their wives and their fans. The verdict was merciless. The court discovered money had been diverted into secret accounts, that TLC contracts had been exploited, and that deliberately fabricated stories were created to keep the flow of money coming, while families disintegrated behind the scenes. Kody and Robyn were ordered to pay millions in restitution, plus extra penalties for fraudulent hiding of assets. But the money was merely part of the punishment. The actual punch came with the judge's statement. This was not entertainment. This was exploitation dressed up as reality, and those responsible must be held accountable. For Kody, it was the demise of the patriarch persona he had held onto for more than a decade. Once sold to the world as the head of a brash, non-traditional family, he stood revealed now as a man who dismantled his own home for profit. Robyn, previously introduced as his loyal companion, was stigmatized as a co-conspirator. TLC quickly responded afterward. In a matter of days, fresh press announcements noted Christine and Janelle as the franchise's future. The network framed them as victors and not victims, women who had overcome deceit and thrived. The rebranding was done. Sister Wives would go on without Kody at its core. And for the viewers, the jury was no longer in. It wasn't a determination of one man or one pair. It was confirmation. The suspicion they had whispered for years, that the bickering appeared staged, that the narratives were too rehearsed, was now validated by the supreme leader. Kody and Robyn had constructed their kingdom on illusions and deceptions, but in the end, the truth incinerated all that. Just not that of a trailblazing polygamous family on television. It is the tale of how greed, manipulation, and fabricated theatrics toppled the very individuals who believed they were above the law. And for Christine, Janelle, and the kids, the last chapter was one of liberation. Not only from Kody, but from the deception that had kept them all captive for too long. The con was finished. The truth prevailed.